Civil Law, where as always we learn through the misfortunes of others. I am your host, Uncivil Law, a licensed attorney in Texas, Virginia, and before the U.S. Supreme Court, and I hope you have a great day. We are continuing our coverage of the Jennifer Crumbley trial, one of the parents accused of essentially reckless disregard with respect to her son, Ethan Crumbley, who committed a mass shooting at Oxford High School. On the stand now, we have perhaps one of the more key witnesses in this case, the school counselor who was present during the conversations with Ethan as it relates to the school activity. So I imagine that this is going to be a very informative witness and perhaps a very informative cross in particular. Especially because this is a mental health person, the fact that he was unable to determine the threat, which I presume is what he's going to say, right? If he can't figure it out based on the pictures and everything else, then perhaps Jennifer can't figure it out either. It's just not a foreseeable end. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this direct and this cross. So far in direct, we've heard a little bit about the discussions that the school counselor had with the mother, relating to some of the pictures that Ethan was taking. Just getting a general sense of what's going on. I imagine we're on direct, we're going to be here for a little while. I would also anticipate that the prosecutor's going to try to draw the sting as it might relate to some of the defense's ideas, if they can. So try to bring it up first with respect to any potential weaknesses they could see. So we'll see how that all goes. It should be very, very informative. We are in fact back. It's nice. I had a piece of fried chicken with a little bit of macaroni and cheese and 2 rolls with some butter on it. Very filling. Very good lunch. I am quite full and ready to go. I hope everyone else had a great lunch too. Get a slab of sourdough with some jam. Sounds promising. Chicken breast in this particular case. Your lunch was a double espresso, and maybe you could try better. No, and I need my wrist thing. So let me see if I can find my wrist thing real fast. Hold on. Oh, it's right here on the computer. I don't even need to get up. My wrist is hurting a little bit, so I have this like removable wrist brace I put on sometimes. Make my wrist hurt a little less, so just put that on. Frosty from Wendy's sounds nice. The wrist pain could be a sign I'm getting old. Simmons sugar bagel with iced coffee. That's one way to go. I don't know if it's carpal tunnel or not. It just kind of hurts sometimes. Could be carpal tunnel, I'm not sure. I just bought the thing off Amazon. Works good. Don't Bleed says I didn't mean to set off that whole half-hour thing. Yeah, well, that's okay. Who knew the question, "Are you doing okay?" would lead to such a long discussion? Perhaps I should have just said yes and moved on. Lol. But I think I'm doing better, so when someone says, you know, "Are you okay?" I'm like, am I not doing better? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I just think too much. Fuck you, Kevin. Why are there so many police officers here? I honestly don't know, to be honest. Why there's so many police officers. It seems a little much.
Your Honor, calling People vs. Jennifer Crumbley, case number 22279-990 FH.
Good afternoon. I have a question for you. We had a discussion about a juror last week. I think the juror, because I said if anyone approaches you or does anything, let me know. And I also
Angry parents? Yeah, maybe it's for safety. Yeah, maybe. There's no audio at the moment. Yeah, there's just no audio at the moment. Audio's all the way up, so just no audio. It's about a juror. That makes sense. Yeah, juror being approached could be. We've had problems with that in the past. Do I feel Houston's better than Austin? I don't know. I haven't lived there before. I don't know. I'll get back to you. We'll see what we'll see what we see when we see what we see it. Dallas Fort Worth. Dallas Fort Worth sounds cool. I wouldn't mind living in Dallas Fort Worth. It sounds like a cool place. Probably Fort Worth more. Sounds a little bit more of that cowboy aesthetic. Sounds pretty cool.
All right, I'm going to ask all of you to exit with the exception of juror number 5. Juror in seat 5, okay? My clerks are like, what the heck is she doing? So that's why we're not. Yeah, just for a few minutes, just for a few minutes. Don't worry. Don't worry. All right, you may be seated.
What time the Murdaugh hearing is today? I think it's now.
I don't want to make you nervous. What's that?
It's already happened this morning. I think they're doing essentially now.
Oh, the jury's never on here, right?
Yeah, I'm not showing that, but I just want to make sure the audio worked. I've got my hand over the lens, Your Honor.
Okay.
So, but is this these?
Am I Texas native? No.
Off camera?
I'm not Texas native.
Well, I would love it. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask you to do that, though. Am I allowed to ask you to do that? I'm still maintaining a public courtroom, so I think I am. Thank you. Thank you. So you're off, right? This will
Yes,
take just a second. Thank you. I just wanted to ask you.
Well, I'm not sure what they're talking about, so we just have to be patient, I guess. It is nice that the cameraman does seem to give a damn. That's very, very true. It's a nice thing. Thank you for coming back, Gamma King. Glad to have you here. Everyone in the courtroom can hear. Why are we not allowed to? I don't know that everyone in the courtroom necessarily can hear. And, I don't know, compartmentalization of information. I couldn't really say. I don't know if everyone can hear or not. Perhaps because they're concerned about the public hearing the person's voice and it being recognized by somebody in the public. I don't know. They might be doing the white noise thing. That's very possible. And we'll just sit here waiting for a while. How y'all doing? Judge did say don't worry. Yeah. We'll do a bad lip read of the Depp trial, but it turns out I'm not that creative. Fair. Is it wrong when someone says don't worry, I hear you should be very worried? I don't think that's necessarily wrong, no.
All right, you may be seated. Well, we're going to continue Mr. Hopkins' testimony.
What type of consequences could a juror face for messing about? At this point, just dismissal from the jury, really.
You are Sean Hopkins?
Yes.
Unless your effing around causes the entire thing to mistrial, at which time you might get 180 days in jail, like recently happened.
Go ahead, prosecutor.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Hopkins, when we broke for lunch, we were talking about the phone conversation you had with Jennifer Crumbley when you called her into school.
Yes.
Okay. So, that morning, did both Jennifer and James Crumbley come to the school?
They did.
Okay. Do you recall approximately what time?
I believe it was around 10:30.
Okay. Now, if I were to tell you that we had video surveillance that showed that you welcomed them to your office at 10:40, would that sound right?
That sounds right.
Okay. So, walk us through what happened from the time that you were notified that James and Jennifer Crumbley were there to the time that you went and welcomed them.
So when I was notified that they were there, I had actually texted Mr. Ejak to please come back to my office. He had been present through a majority of the meeting until we confirmed the parents were arriving, and then asked him to return. I then went out to the lobby of the counseling office area to greet the parents.
Okay. So from the phone call where you actually spoke with Jennifer Crumbley was 9:27 a.m. From that point, 9:27 a.m. until 10:40 a.m., where was the defendant's son?
In my office.
Okay, and what was going on there?
There was a conversation between myself, the defendant's son, and Mr. Ejek was there as well until approximately 10 a.m. During that time, I was still trying to affirm that parents would be able to arrive, and I was talking with the student about really what I was going to be sharing with his parents.
Okay. And tell me, sir, what was your expectation of the result of that meeting that you called?
My hope was that they would set a plan to get help for their son.
Okay. Was your expectation that they would take their son home?
That was my hope.
Your hope. Okay. So at 10:40 a.m., you welcome them into your office. Tell me what happens next.
We walked back into my office. The student was in there. And then mom and dad sat down. There were 3 seats in my office, 2 directly across from me, and then 1 that was kind of off the corner of my desk a little more. The student was in one of the 2 across from me. Dad sat in one of those, and mom sat in the one that was more at a diagonal from where I was.
When the defendant and her husband walked into the office, did they approach their son?
Not to my memory, no.
Okay. Did either one of them hug their son?
No.
So who started the meeting?
I believe I did, and I went over some of the things that I had talked through over the past 2 days with their son. I wanted to confirm some things I wasn't sure of, so I confirmed with mom that she did receive a voicemail from Miss Fine the day before, and just confirmed that what was stated in that meeting was true. And mom confirmed that she received it and that was true. And then I went over some of the things that I had received messages of from the teachers over the past 2 days.
Okay. Now, when you were asking Jennifer Crumbley to confirm that information,
I wish
did
the
she share
attorney
any
would get on the
additional
mic so I could hear what he has to say.
Not to my memory, no.
Now, describe Jennifer Crumbley's demeanor when she walked into your office.
She sat down in the chair, felt a little bit distant.
What do you mean by that?
More just kind of like, it felt like it was a little bit of an inconvenience to be there.
Okay, you testified that you had to have these meetings in the past.
Yes.
Was this meeting similar to those meetings, or was it different?
Your Honor, objection to relevance.
Judges,
If the audio remains this bad, I don't know what we're going to do because I can't hear any of the questions from the attorneys.
care to avoid a tragedy, and her failure to use just ordinary care contributed to her failure to adhere to her parental responsibilities, which is her duty under Michigan law. It's all part of gross negligence, Judge.
Well, I guess it was the meeting unusual in any way? How many meetings like this have you had with parents in general?
Dozens.
Dozens? Okay. So, I mean, people react differently to. No one's very excited about coming to this school about their child, right?
I would agree.
Now, this wasn't a discipline issue, though, was it, sir?
No.
Okay. In fact, you had indicated, Jennifer Crumbley, that you had concerns with suicidal ideation.
I had concerns for his well-being, absolutely.
And you communicated that to Mrs. Crumbley before she got there?
Yes,
Okay.
You can hear him?
Yet still, it was different than the dozens of meetings you had in the past?
I would agree.
I can't hear him.
So, you said that the defendant's son sat directly across from you. James Crumbley was in a chair next to him. Jennifer Crumbley was off to your side.
I'll turn up my mic. I'll turn up my audio on my end.
Which chair student and dad were in.
That's
I know
fine.
they were both across from me, and Jennifer Crumbley was off to the side a little
Okay.
more.
So, you were asking them to confirm the voicemail, information left in the voicemail November the 29th, the day before?
Yes.
Okay, specifically, what information were you asking them to confirm?
I asked first that they received the voicemail because I didn't know at that point whether they had or not. And then I asked to confirm the details of the voicemail, which were that
Be right back.
shooting guns were a hobby that they undertook as a family and that they had went to the range over the weekend.
Okay. Did you tell Jennifer Crumbley that her son expressed to you his own feelings of his friend leaving the state?
I did mention that, yes.
Okay, and what else did you mention?
I mentioned the conversations I had with the student of the friend leaving, that the student was sad about that, the dog, family dog passing, grandparent, COVID being hard, and all of those which were told to me by the student were also confirmed by the parents.
Now, when you say confirmed, I take it that, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this didn't catch Jennifer Crumbley by surprise.
It did not feel as though it was new information to the
Okay.
parents.
All right. Now, you testified that it was your hope that they would take him home that day. What do you mean by that?
I wanted to make sure the student was able to get the support that I felt was needed, and I was wanting it to be as soon as possible.
Okay. Did you feel like that he could be left alone at that point?
I did not want him left alone at that point. In fact, that's why I kept him in my office until I could make contact with parents.
Okay. And you communicated that to the defendant?
I do not remember if I communicated that to the defendant.
So when you discussed, well, first of all, did you communicate your hope that they take him home to the defendant?
Yes, my words were, I want him to be seen as soon as possible, today if possible, and I actually provided a list of mental health resources and handed that to Mom.
Now, when you say a list of mental health resources, could you explain a little bit more what that means?
Yeah, it was multiple pages of different services throughout the area, what they specialized in, whether they accepted insurance or not, and contact information for those different therapeutic options.
Okay, and that was actually provided to the defendant and her husband?
I handed it to Mom.
Okay. Now, when you communicated your expectation, what was Jennifer Crumbley's response?
I didn't feel as if it was going to be an absolute no, but it was made quite clear that it wasn't possible to do it that day.
Why do you say it was made clear it wasn't possible to do it that
That
day?
they had to return to work and they were unable to do it that day.
Well, who said that?
Mom.
Mom, isn't Jennifer Crumbley?
Yes.
Did she speak for James, or did James speak as well?
I don't remember James speaking on that topic.
So what happened next?
My comment was, then I said I'd like to see him as soon as possible. Today is possible. I was told today is not possible, so I said, is 48 hours possible? I will be following up.
In those dozens of meetings in the past, had anyone ever said that they couldn't have their son go with them that day?
I had not had that happen in a situation.
Your Honor, I would object to the relevance.
It's the same response as the last objection.
Okay, well, I guess you'd want to back up even further. Had you ever asked parents to take their child home with them that day? Have you ever requested that before?
I've encouraged parents to be able to get their son and or daughter help and therapy. I had never had it where it was feeling like I needed to push to make it happen.
And you say the feeling like you needed to push to make it happen, that's what you're experiencing November the 30th, 2021.
That is correct.
Okay. So tell me what's going on through your mind at this point.
I was a little caught off guard and a little confused because it was something that I wasn't really expecting that type of response, especially when parents came, and in fact both parents came, which I wasn't expecting nor did I request. I was a little surprised at their willingness to come, but then not completely follow through.
Okay. Now, you told the defendant and her husband that your opinion was this drawing showed suicidal ideation. Is that right?
That was my opinion, and I did not. I saw it as somebody who was showing signs that could be associated with suicide, and so I took that, and out of just an abundance of caution, wanted to make sure that the student was able to get help.
Okay. But you communicated that to the defendant.
I did.
Did you specifically ask them to take him home that day?
I did not specifically ask them to take them home. I asked them to take him to get help and therapeutic help.
Now, when it was made clear to you that Jennifer Crumbley was not going to take her son home, and neither was James, what is your next step?
My next step was to try and think of what is best for this student in front of me in this moment.
Okay. And tell me about your decision process.
When I looked through it, it was clear they weren't going to take him that day. So my first thought was, I don't want him alone. I want to make sure somebody who's experiencing.
Why didn't you want him alone?
Because I don't want a student who may be suicidal alone.
Okay. I cut you off. Please continue.
I then, after determining I didn't want him alone, I went through different options of what needed to happen. At that point, the student had requested to be able to stay in class, and parents were on board with him staying in class as a good placement. I was with our dean, who would be the person who does discipline, and of the 4 adults in the room, I'm the one who can't remove a student from class. So I asked our dean if there was any reason from a discipline standpoint or anything that he needed to do from a discipline standpoint that would prevent the student from returning to class.
And the response there?
No.
So, you told us that you were taken aback. You were a bit confused by the response of the defendant. And now you moved on to your next decision with the information in front of you. Is that when you turned to Mr. Ejak and requested information regarding discipline?
It is.
Okay. And how did the meeting end? Tell us about that.
The meeting at that point ended fairly abruptly.
What do you mean by that?
Well, at that point, we had a student wanting to return to class. I knew that he wasn't going to be able to be removed to go get therapy that day. So I was kind of left with an option of, okay, this student, I can't keep a student from class if there isn't a reason to keep him from class. I asked if there was a discipline reason, and once we had kind of gotten to that point, I allowed the student to go back to class based on the information I had, and then Mom asked if we were done.
Those were her words, are we done?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
What was your response to that?
My response was, I guess so.
Now, you let her son go back to class before James and Jennifer left your office, is that right?
There was a short time overlap of maybe 1 minute.
Okay. So tell us what happened when it was communicated to the defendant's son that he could go back to class and he left. What happened in that time span?
There wasn't anything noteworthy or different than any other student I've had leave my office. I wrote a pass to allow him back into the classroom, and he had his belongings and went to class.
When he left, did either James or Jennifer hug him?
Not to my memory, no.
Did they say anything to him?
Not to my memory.
Did you say anything to him?
I did.
What did you say?
When I handed him his pass, I just let him know that I cared about him.
And why did you say that?
Because I do. Like I did. It was an hour and a half with a student who was sad, with a student that we were talking about future plans.
Now, in the time span from when you wrote him a pass and he went back to his class and James and Jennifer were still there, did they continue discussion without him?
I don't remember any.
Okay. So what happened next?
I had handed them the sheet with referrals, and to my memory, they gathered up belongings and left.
Now, what was your plan as far as follow-up had this attack not happened?
My plan as far as follow-up was I was going to meet with the student the next morning to see if there had been more discussions and more plans about getting help. And then if there had not, my plan was to call Child Protective Services.
Okay. Now, how long would you say the meeting lasted from beginning to end?
Less than 15 minutes.
All right. And again, was that typical or atypical from these meetings that you've been in before?
Objection.
Same response, Jeff.
In your experience, how long do these meetings usually last?
They vary. I mean, I've had some where parents came, got their kids, and it was 5 minutes. I've had some where we were in my office for an hour.
Okay. So the instances where they grabbed their kid, that was quick.
Could be, yes.
But when they spoke and talked through things, it was much longer.
Yes.
May I have one more, Your Honor?
Yeah, this should be interesting if we're going to go across.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Hopkins.
Good afternoon.
My name is Shannon. I represent Mrs. Crumbley. When I'm asking questions today, if I ask anything confusing, can you please slow me down and let me know?
I will do so.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. It's true that you are licensed as a school counselor, correct?
That is correct.
What does it mean to be licensed as a school counselor, or what does one have to do to obtain a license?
You have to graduate with a degree from an accredited university and meet all of the standards of the state of Michigan to become a school counselor.
And obviously you did that.
Yes.
Can you give us the example and some examples of the standards?
I have to meet the required trainings based on hours over a certain period of years.
Do you recall how many hours or?
Well, they're broken up into specific categories, but in totality, it's on top of the degree, 150 hours every 5 years.
150 every 5 years. And you just mentioned that they're broken up into categories. Can you just give us a quick idea of what these categories are?
Yep. Some are based on college. They have to be hours specific towards helping students get to college. Some are based on careers, and some are more general.
Are any of those based on suicide prevention or danger at school or discipline?
Those hours are not, but a degree in counseling is.
Aside from receiving your degree and those 150 hours of training, or hours that you had to obtain your license, did you have any other additional training or continuing type education regarding becoming a counselor?
Yes.
Okay, tell us about that.
The training is continual and goes well above and beyond 150 hours. It's oftentimes based on school need and oftentimes based on what is important in the profession.
And when you were testifying, did you say you graduated in 2012?
No.
I'm sorry, 2009?
I graduated undergrad in 2009, master's in 2015.
I'm sorry, okay, master's in 15. And at what point did you become licensed? Were you licensed, what year?
I passed the school counseling exam in the summer of 2014.
Okay, so starting in summer of 2014, you had to do at least 150 hours every 5-year period, correct?
When I was hired in 2015 and had the full licensure, I did 5 years, renewed my license in 2020.
Did you do the 150 hours or did you do more hours?
More.
Can you give us an idea of how many hours?
Significantly more.
Okay, when you say significantly more, are you talking double the number of hours, 50 extra hours?
I wouldn't keep track of all the hours that far beyond, but significantly more.
Okay, I understand, I just don't know.
More than 200.
More than 200, okay. And then, again, you've continued since that time when you renewed your license in 2020 to keep getting more and more hours, correct?
Correct.
So by 2021, it's fair to say you had over the 150 hours you needed, the additional hours you talked about, and then you had already started moving on into the 150 you would need for renewing your license for the next 5 years.
Yes.
Okay, did I say all that right?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Now, when I want to go back through the exhibits that Mr. Keast admitted while you were on the stand, and if you need to see any of the exhibits, please let me know. I'm going to start with 155, which were the emails that started off with Miss is it DeRiker?
It is DeRiker.
DeRiker. Do you need to see that in order to?
I would like to see that.
Okay,
Yes, please.
Your Honor, may I put it up on the screen, what's been admitted?
Sure, I'm sorry, what exhibit number is it?
This is going to be number 155. So number 155, do you recall seeing this exhibit when Mr. Keast was speaking with you?
Yes, he showed the bottom email portion.
Okay, and the bottom email is from May 13th of 2021, correct?
That is correct.
And the issue on this day was a teacher wanted you to speak to Mrs. Crumbley's son to see how he's doing because he was failing class and trying to sleep all the time, correct?
Yes, it states he is failing my class and tries to sleep all the time.
Now, on this issue, on May 13th of 2021, I may have missed it. You don't recall meeting with Mrs. Crumbley's son to see what was going on, do you?
I do not have memory of this meeting.
Do you not have memory of the meeting, or did you not meet with him? Do you even know?
I do not have memory of the meeting. Evidence that has been researched suggests that I did meet with him.
At that time, in May of 2021, you did not call Mrs. Crumbley to discuss this falling asleep and failing a class, correct?
To my memory, I did not.
Thank you. I'm going to go to the next exhibit, which is number 156. Okay, and it's popping up on the screen. So number 156, this is from September of 2021, so a couple of months later, correct?
Yes, and the next school year.
Oh, that's what I was going to say. So the May would have been the end of one school year, and September would be the beginning of the next school year.
Yes.
Okay, in September, on September 8th of 2021 specifically, the Spanish teacher asked you to check in with Mrs. Crumbley's son because he had written a poem that said he felt terrible that his family is a mistake, correct?
Yes, that is what she wrote in the email.
Now, on this occasion, in September of 2021, did you speak with Mrs. Crumbley's son?
No.
You did not. Okay, so then it would also be fair to say that you did not call Mrs. Crumbley herself and let her know that this concern had taken place.
Yes, as I stated earlier, I followed through with the teacher on
Okay.
this concern, and she gave me further clarification of what had occurred.
Okay, so at the end of the day, after further clarification, all said and done, this September 8th date, you did not place a phone call to Mrs. Crumbley.
Correct.
You did not email her or, I suppose, communicate with her in any way, correct?
That is correct.
I'm going a couple months later, we saw exhibit 157, and I'm going to go ahead and put that up on the screen. Now, 157 is the emails dated, it looks like November 10th of 2021. This was an email from the Spanish teacher to you indicating that Mrs. Crumbley's son is having a rough time and may need to speak with you, correct?
Yes, that she writes he is having a rough time right now. He might need to speak with you.
And on this occasion, you did speak with Mrs. Crumbley's son, correct?
I did.
This was the occasion where you saw him in the hallway and had a conversation with him, correct?
Yes, I caught him during passing time where there were a couple of minutes in between classes and let him know that if he needed someone to talk to, that I would be there.
Okay, so you talked to him, offered support, let him know where he could find you, correct?
Correct.
Now, on this occasion, in November 10th of 2021, after speaking with Mrs. Crumbley's son, you did not call Mrs. Crumbley, correct?
I did not.
You did not email Mrs. Crumbley about what took place with her son, correct?
I did not contact her in any way based on this email.
Now I'm going to go to November 29th of 2021. This was admitted as People's Exhibit 158. Okay, I've got it up on the screen. And this appears to be an email chain between you and Mrs. Kavina. Is that correct?
Yeah, she sent me, this is actually just saying that she forwarded the message. This is not the message.
I apologize. This message, however, that's forwarded makes you aware that Mrs. Crumbley's son was looking at different bullets in his first hour class, correct?
Yes, I do not have that email in front of me right now. So I don't have the exact wording. There it is.
I'm sorry, it's page 2, so I just had to scroll down.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's alerting our Dean of Students and Ms. Fine that there was a student in first hour who was on his phone looking at different bullets at the end of the hour.
Now, on this date, on November 29th, 2021, you did witness Miss Fine leaving a voicemail letting Mrs. Crumbley know what happened, correct?
That is correct. I witnessed Ms. Fine calling Ms. Crumbley and then leaving a voicemail regarding a conversation that happened during school.
And this jury has already heard the voicemail. We can agree that there is no request by Ms. Fine or the school that Mrs. Crumbley return the call, correct?
I don't remember the voicemail because I have not listened to it. It would not be odd to me if there was a request or not a request.
Thank you. Now, in that voicemail, I'm sorry, I'm not going to ask you about the voicemail. At the time of this issue of looking at bullets, you and Pamela Fine discussed this issue, correct?
What do you mean by discussed? I'm not sure I understand.
I'm assuming and asking, did you and Ms. Fine discuss the fact that Mrs. Crumbley's son was looking up bullets?
Are you asking in reference before the student arrived?
Yes, before or when the student arrived, either.
There was not much time between me getting there and the student arriving. The context of the meeting was largely led by Ms. Fine to gain an understanding from the student's perspective of what was going on at the end of the hour. First, to see if he was going to be forthcoming with the truth, and then to see what was actually going on and what his reasons for doing so were.
And when you guys spoke with him about the bullets, there was also discussion about other things people may look up on the internet that are not illegal, but just not appropriate during school hours, correct?
There was discussion about school appropriate behavior, yes.
And overall, Mrs. Crumbley's son was told looking at bullets not appropriate for school, correct?
Yes, looking at bullets is not appropriate during school.
And beyond that, there was no further disciplinary action taken by the school other than just a notification, phone call, voicemail to Mrs. Crumbley.
To my knowledge, but I would not be the one making the disciplinary decisions.
As far as you know, though, that was the end of it.
That was the end of my involvement in it.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn to Exhibit 159. This was admitted when you testified, and this is an email that appears to be between Allison Karpinski and this was sent to you by Ms. Karpinski. Do you recall this email?
I do.
Now, this email is dated on November 30th, 2021.
Yes.
Correct? And no, we agree, November 30th, 2021 is the day that ultimately becomes the shooting, the day of the shooting.
Yes.
And this email was sent at 8:05 a.m. by the teacher to you.
Yes.
And specifically mentions that Mrs. Crumbley's son was watching videos on his phone of a guy gunning down people, correct?
It says that today he is watching videos of his phone of a guy gunning down people, and to continue, she writes, it looks like a movie scene and not security footage / a real event.
Okay, so she represented that it looked like a movie scene. It doesn't look like a real event. Okay, but she mentioned that it's definitely still concerning, correct?
Yeah, she says when taking into account some of his other behaviors, that she found it definitely still concerning.
Now, when did you become aware that Mrs. Crumbley's son was watching these concerning videos?
When I read the email.
At 8:05 in the morning?
I did not read the email at 8:05. I believe I read it approximately 30 minutes later.
Okay, so you would have read this email at approximately 8:30 that morning.
Around that time, yes.
Now, when you read the email at 8:30 that morning, you did not call Mrs. Crumbley's son down to the office to ask him about these videos, correct?
I was on the phone at the time with other parents.
So you did not call Mrs. Crumbley's son down to ask him about the videos. That's fair, correct?
I did as soon as I was able to.
Okay, so there's a time lapse between when you got the email and when you were able to speak with Mrs. Crumbley's son.
Yes.
Now, when you spoke to Mrs. Crumbley's son, you did not ask him to bring up the videos and let you watch what he was watching, correct?
Correct. I asked him what he was watching.
And you relied on the information he provided to you about what he was watching.
Exactly as I would if I asked him to show me the videos, yes.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what that means.
I was relying on him to provide the information, which would be the same as if I had asked him to show the videos.
Okay, but if you saw the videos, you would know specifically what they look like. You are instead relying on what Mrs. Crumbley's son says was on the videos, correct?
Yes, I asked him what they were, and he told me what they were. And I relied on the information he gave me.
When he told you what the videos were, the information you relied on, did he tell you where he obtained those videos from?
No.
Do you have any idea, or did you ask, how long he was looking at those videos for?
I did not.
Is taught in school to end all your questions with
On
correct?
November
It's classic,
30th,
yes.
So about an hour after the time period we just discussed, that was when Miss Morgan made you aware of this math paper that we've discussed extensively in this trial, correct?
Miss Morgan did not make me aware of the math paper. She made Mr. Ejak aware of the math paper.
I apologize. And then was it Mr. Ejak that made you aware of it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, and thank you for clearing that up. Now, your testimony, you testified about the math paperwork, your observations, your thoughts about it on a couple of occasions over the last couple of years. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And when you saw the original photograph or the original math paper, we can agree that there is a gun drawn on the math paper.
Which one are you referring to as the original?
I'm speaking about the one. Let me put it up on the screen. It's within Exhibit 160, and it's the prior to alterations, the math paper. Do you recall seeing this?
There you
Oh,
go.
thank you. Yes, I was sent this in an email approximately 30 minutes into our meeting.
Okay, now when you saw, did you see the altered math test first, or did you see I called this the original. There's also one, because let's just be clear here. the shooter drew on a math paper, and what we see on the screen is that original drawing and writings. Is that correct?
What you see here is the photograph taken by the math teacher,
Of the original paper.
as it was when she had it, yes.
And then after she had it, the shooter wrote more on the paper, and we ended up with a second math paper that is essentially the original math paper plus some writings on it, correct?
Well, it's doctored.
Doctored. Okay, right. So I'm going to call this the original, and then I'm going to call the other one with the additional writing the altered version.
Put lawyer in the
Is that
title?
okay with
Sure.
you?
Understood.
Okay, for the purpose of questioning. Okay, now I'm going to open up the altered version as well, which was admitted as Exhibit 123. Okay, so it's fair to say that you are familiar both with the original math
put
paper
lawyer in the
and
title, see if
with
that does
the
anything.
altered one, correct?
I was able to look at both of them over the course of our meeting, correct.
And when you look at both papers, it's very clear that Mrs. Crumbley's son drew a picture depicting a gun, correct?
Yes, and the one especially that has no scribbles over it, I would not say that without context that it would be very clear on the altered one that that is a gun. Without context of the original.
Okay, I agree with you. So you're saying that the first photo on the left of the screen, it's clearly a gun, but when he altered the drawing, he crossed it off so much you might not know that had been a gun drawn there.
Correct.
Okay, when you saw the gun drawn on the sheet, seeing that gun, even just seeing the gun, that was not enough to make you believe that Mrs. Crumbley's son posed a risk to himself or other students, correct?
I wasn't sure whether he posed a risk to himself, so that is why I called in the parents.
Okay.
I was concerned, and I wouldn't call in parents unless I was concerned.
Okay, so you called the parents in because you were concerned, but we can agree that seeing the drawings, just the drawings alone were not enough for you to conclude there is something dangerous to other people.
When I take that in context, that is only a piece of the information I had. I also was looking at his demeanor throughout it. I also was asking questions to him, asking if he was a threat to himself or others, and taking his response of sadness, which is not a common threatening response.
Okay, and it's in all fairness, and you've had lots of training on this, correct?
I have had training on this.
So you've been trained, you've been formally trained on how to assess this kind of information and how to deal with
Yes.
it, correct?
We have
And
we have an
the
image of
way
some
that I
jury
would be
footwear.
Dealing with it would be.
We have some image of some jury footwear here.
To entrust the parents.
Got a
with
tread
their
on what
child.
looks like a suede shoe, maybe.
So, there was talk at some point in the materials from this case about a step 1, step 2, step 3. Do you know what I'm talking about in terms of evaluating a suicide risk?
I don't know what direct thing you're referring to.
Okay, are there certain steps, if you do have concern, that you follow if a student is exhibiting what you called suicide ideation?
Well, suicide ideation is very different than actively suicidal.
Okay.
So I wonder if what you're describing might be
You know that
active
shoe?
suicide.
What shoe is that,
as opposed
Kevin?
to what we do if we see suicidal ideation.
Looks nice.
Well, what do you do if you said in this case you were concerned about
Timberland,
suicidal
maybe?
ideation, correct?
Yes.
So what do you do when it's a concern of suicidal ideation?
I call the parents.
Call the parents. Okay, and that's what you did, obviously, in this case.
Yes.
Okay, and one of the questions I do have for you, and I'm just going to page 72 from the civil deposition. This is just for you guys. Page 72 of the civil deposition is where I'm getting this question from. A drawing.
Is it
of
like a
somebody
jungle mock,
shooting
maybe?
a gun,
From Merrill?
is just a drawing. That is something you've said before, correct?
I do not remember.
If there's not another person in the drawing, that's of significance to you when you see a picture of a gun, correct?
Are you referencing in regards to the math assignment?
Yes.
In the math assignment, if I see multiple people, I do have a different level of concern.
Okay, so explain for us then what, and I don't know why that clicked off, but it's gonna pop back up. So explain to us what you mean by when you see another person or you don't see another person. Tell us what you see up here and how things would change if there were multiple people.
Well, I see one body. If I see somebody holding the gun in one body, my response is completely different.
Okay, so
No, it's not Merrill.
have you had training about looking at drawings by students and being able to take them into account when you're assessing situations?
I've had training in how to assess situations. I would not say I've had training in students' drawings.
Clark,
Okay,
maybe?
But your conclusion was that because there's not a second person, seeing a gun on these pages in and of itself alone would not be enough to cause you concern.
Again, you're taking a very small piece of that. That is just a piece of what I saw in totality.
Okay, so you were asked before, you didn't see anything that suggested that there was a gun in the hand on this drawing, and your answer was no, correct?
In regards to this drawing,
Yes.
I do not see a gun in someone's hand on this drawing.
Okay, you were asked. That's a pretty important thing for you to know or not. Do you agree? Your answer was a drawing of somebody who is shooting a gun. Still, there's not another person. It's just a drawing. Do you recall testifying that way when you were previously asked about this drawing?
That was not in regards to this drawing.
Clark Desert Boot? It might be a Clark Desert Boot, yeah.
It's fair to say that
thought maybe
which drawing
Clark.
was it in regards to then?
Not this one.
So you testified at a deposition on September 14th of 2022, correct?
I believe that was the date, correct?
And there are, the discussion prior to those questions was about the drawing in class that day, and the
could
drawing
be a
being on
Clark.
the violent side. Do you recall that?
Yeah.
In regards to the email from the teacher that we discussed earlier, yes.
Okay.
The wrong
So,
Contreva
at the
for
end of the
Clark.
day, your prior
aggressive for
testimony
Clark.
that seeing a drawing of a gun, that in and of itself, by itself, does not create enough of a concern that something more sinister is happening, correct?
We are looking at a total picture and not just a piece of a picture.
And you are trained to look at that total picture, correct?
I took the approach to look at the total picture.
In addition to looking at the total
And the
picture,
Clarks
and by
have flat
picture,
sh-
I'm saying
flat
the picture
surfaces.
that was drawn, you
Timberland?
also look at the picture in terms of the demeanor of the person you're speaking to, the way the person is presenting, the way the student is behaving, a number of factors, correct?
I try to take in as much information as I can.
And taking in as much information as you can is certainly something
Clark
that
Rosedale
you
High?
have learned to do through, in addition to your training, your experience, correct?
Yes.
This is not the first time that you're calling a student down to your office to talk to them about something that may be problematic, correct?
Well, and That's why I was not the only one in the meeting.
Could
I
be.
didn't want to take the approach of I was the only one.
Could be,
making the
Clark.
call. I also had our person in charge of discipline with me.
And so you are in the meeting, and when you're saying the person in charge of discipline, you're talking about Mr. Ejak, correct?
Yes.
And Mr. Ejak is going to testify, but your understanding is that Mr. Ejak has also had training on dealing with these kind of situations, correct?
I do not know
Sorrel?
his total background.
You would assume that as the assistant dean of school of the school,
Just
he's got
object to the
training.
question of this witness. Mr. Ejak will testify. It's appropriate for him.
I'll withdraw the question, Your
Okay,
Honor.
yeah, he can answer that, Mr. Ejak.
No, it's not Sorrel.
Now, when you asked Mrs. Crumbley's son about the videos he was watching, he indicated to you that he wanted to be a video game designer, correct?
He did.
And he actually had a detailed conversation with you about an opportunity that Oxford has for students to get training to become video game designers, correct?
I showed him a program through Oakland Schools that could lead him into that area.
Okay, so you and Mrs. Crumbley's son had a conversation about if he was interested in pursuing a video game designer career. The school system even has opportunities for him to further that interest.
Yes.
And in that conversation, when you were speaking to Mrs. Crumbley's son, you believed he had a genuine interest in this video game designing future.
Yes, I did.
If you believed that Mrs. Crumbley's son did not have a genuine interest in becoming a designer, or that he really was drawing pictures with a plan to hurt people, you would have certainly taken different actions, correct?
If I believed that he was a threat to people, I would have taken different actions.
Now, you testified about when the parents came in and this meeting that you had with them. You obviously recall that, correct?
I do recall the meeting.
Now, when you met with the parents, they were present for approximately 12 minutes out of the entire time you spent with Mrs. Crumbley's son.
Yes.
And you testified that you were with Mrs. Crumbley's son for approximately an hour and a half, correct?
Correct.
So it would have been an hour and a half, including those 12 minutes.
Yes.
Now, prior to that hour and a half spent with Mrs. Crumbley's son, you had never spent any kind of time, really, aside from short conversations with Mrs. Crumbley's son, correct?
Correct.
And you also had never spent time with Mr. or Mrs. Crumbley talking to them about or handling matters regarding their son, correct?
Correct.
So when Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley arrived at the school and were communicating with you on this issue, these are not parents that you're seeing on a weekly or even monthly basis, correct?
Correct.
I imagine at the school there are other situations where you have students that are essentially frequent flyers down to your office, correct?
I do know some students more than others.
And some of the students that you deal with more frequently, you're also used to dealing with their parents on a more frequent basis, correct?
Potentially correct.
And the more times you have to deal with the parents and the more times you have to deal with their child, the more you get to know about the family and the dynamics of the relationships, correct?
Yes, I would hope the more time I spend with someone, the better I know them.
So when you are talking about how the Crumbleys greeted their son or did not hug their son, it's fair to say that you are not aware, you've never really seen the Crumbleys greet their son on other occasions, correct?
Correct. I'm not making a judgment on normal. I'm simply stating what happened.
Okay, and that's completely fair. And I just want to confirm, though, that in terms of when you're making the observation, there was no hug or a certain kind of greeting, You also you haven't had the experience of seeing the Crumbleys greet their son on other occasions.
Correct.
And it's also fair to say that when parents come into the office, parents all may have a different reaction about their child being down in the counselor's office or in the principal's office, correct?
Well, first I would say those are two very different places.
Okay.
But no, you don't expect all parents to respond in the same way.
You get parents who are angry at their child as they're walking in the door, right?
Rarely.
Some people are coming in and have more of an anxious look.
They could.
Some parents may come in and just seem like this is no big deal.
Again, all parents could respond differently.
Okay, so there's any number of responses, and in the end, and if your training says any different, let me know. There is no right answer about specifically how a parent should respond to going to a school counselor's office or going to a school principal's office.
Yes, again, I stated I'm not making a judgment, I'm simply stating what happened.
Thank you. Now, the dates that we talked about are dates where, obviously, through the course of this investigation, you identified emails where you were involved with Mrs. Crumbley's son. Is that a fair statement?
I'm not sure what your question is.
Did you provide the emails that we talked about and that were admitted as exhibits?
Did I provide them? The Oakland County Sheriff's Department had full access to my email.
Okay, did you at any point go through your emails to take a look at any emails related to Mrs. Crumbley's son?
On the night of the shooting, I did, with a police officer, go through and search for anything I could think of from that day and print and hand them to him.
Okay, and then ultimately, any of these other emails we've seen were discovered by law enforcement.
Yes, there's been a full cooperation with that.
Okay, and I'm not trying to allege you haven't been cooperative. I'm just asking that those emails, obviously, I imagine all your emails are stored on some kind of a system. Would that be?
Not my area.
Not mine either. This jury learned about my technology abilities on Friday. I want to just turn your attention to a couple of dates. On March 8th and March 9th of 2021, you didn't have any experiences with Mrs. Crumbley's son related to needing counseling or being called down to the principal's office, correct?
I don't remember any.
Okay. On March 16th, which was a Tuesday, March 17th, Wednesday, 18th, or 19th, you don't have any incidents on those dates with regard to Mrs. Crumbley's son either.
I don't remember any.
Okay? If there had been incidents involving Mrs. Crumbley's son on these specific dates, would you assume they would have been included in the emails of all the other dates that were included about?
If there were emails of them, they would have been included.
Okay, so we don't have any emails of March 16th, 17th, 18th, or 19th, correct?
To my knowledge, no.
We didn't see any emails or concerns that arose from, well, this is a Saturday, so probably not likely, Saturday, March 20th, correct?
I don't know of any.
Sunday, April 4th,
I don't know of any.
not even the next day, Monday, April 5th?
I don't know of any other meetings aside from the emails that have already been presented.
Okay, so then in all fairness, when I'm April 29th and November 4th, same thing, you don't have any awareness of any of these days?
I don't know of anything specific towards those days.
Okay. Now, you testified that it was your hope that Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley would take their son home and get him into a counselor that day, correct?
Yes.
when you had that hope, you gave them a list of counselors to suggest they call, and noting which ones took various insurance programs, correct?
Yes, I provided a list of resources.
Now, in terms of getting a counseling appointment within one day, you don't have any knowledge if those counselors on that list could guarantee a same-day appointment, correct?
I don't know counselor schedules, and I can't speculate on what they would have had.
Is it fair to say that in the post-COVID time of 2021, mental health services have become more difficult to obtain appointments? And if you don't know and you're not the right person to ask, just let me know.
I don't work in community mental health, so I can't make that statement.
Have you personally had to call to schedule therapy type appointments for anyone?
I experienced a shooting. I called to cancel to get therapy for myself.
Okay, and when you called to get therapy for yourself, it was obviously a very, very urgent situation.
I mean, it was a pretty impactful situation, yes.
Okay, and did you end up seeing a counselor on the 30th?
No, I was cooperating with law enforcement and still in our building on the 30th.
Okay, so your appointment was sometime after the 30th, correct?
It was after the 30th.
And sometimes when you call to get a counseling appointment, it's not unusual to have to wait a couple of days or to schedule it, correct?
I think we're getting a little hypothetical with this, and I can't speculate on what's usual or not for counselors in this area.
That's fair enough. I appreciate that. When you were speaking with Mrs. Crumbley's son, it's fair to say that you and Mrs. Crumbley's son discussed...
Yeah, Robin, I don't think that's true
whether you
because
wanted to
their
see
perception
them
of the ease or not of getting an appointment
prior
might
to
have
the
partially
arrival of
influenced their
Mr.
decision.
Crumbley. Is that correct?
So even if they didn't try, like if they
And
had perception that getting
Mrs.
appointments
Crumbley's
were
son's
difficult,
son's
then
position was,
it might have
I want
been
to
one of
stay
the
in
reasons
school,
why they didn't make a
correct?
call at all, because it's like not
COVID
possible.
had been hard on him.
I mean,
He didn't
it's
like
an
the
idea.
learning. Was that your understanding?
He did state those two things, yes.
And there was discussion when the parents arrived that missing school is a source of anxiety for Mrs. Crumbley's son. Do you recall that?
I do.
So before Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley even got there, the option for Mrs. Crumbley's son to stay in school was on the table.
Well, there is no option of staying in school. School is a requirement unless you meet certain standards in which it is no longer available to you.
Okay, if a child gets sick at school, at Oxford High School, and vomits, okay, are they allowed to stay in school the rest of the day?
I don't know. That's not something I deal with.
Okay. Are you aware if a child has a temperature, if they are allowed to stay in school? And if you're not aware, let me know.
If they are allowed to stay in school?
Yes.
If we didn't, like, again, hypothetical, but not my area, I don't send students home.
Okay. Are you aware if the school will tell parents you need to take this child home if they are sick at school, physically sick?
The only time I remember that being a discussion was during COVID.
Okay, during COVID, were kids who were exposed to COVID allowed to be in school?
No, because we were following rules and regulations outside of the school.
So even if parents said, I want my child to be in school, he has COVID, but I want him to be there, that's not allowed, right?
Judge, I have to object to relevance now. We're awfully far afield.
No, I think he said that that's not up to him. That's maybe
Correct.
Is that up to like the school nurse or some person like
There is no school nurse. The COVID tracing was not through the school, that was through the county health department.
All I'm asking is,
No school
there are
nurse,
times
interesting.
where if a child is sick, it's not an option for them to be present in school.
When the county health department regulated that, yes.
Okay. And you testified that if there had been a discipline issue, as to Mrs. Crumbley's son, that may have been grounds to make him have to go home that day, correct?
That could be the case depending on the discipline issue.
And in terms of the discipline issue, I realize you're not the discipline person, but the school has the option, depending on what's correct, they could suspend a student, they could expel a student. There's processes over school discipline, correct?
There is a process. I am not a part of that process.
It's your testimony, though, that in this case, the school did not find a discipline issue with respect to to Mrs. Crumbley's son.
That is correct. There was nothing that was determined as a discipline issue.
So it was not a discipline issue that he was looking up bullets on his cell phone during a class.
I would not be the one making that determination.
In this case, that was not something he was disciplined for by the school.
I already stated I was not a part of any potential disciplines. To my knowledge, no.
Same thing with watching videos on a phone. The school did not make a discipline issue that would cause Mrs. Crumbley's son to go home for sitting and watching videos on his phone during class, correct?
There was nothing that was determined to be a discipline issue.
And Mrs. Crumbley's son sitting and drawing on math paper instead of actually doing the math paper he's supposed to be doing, as far as you're aware, the school also didn't find there to be a disciplinary violation for that.
Judge, Mr. Hoffman already testified the discipline is in this area. That's Mr. Ejak's area.
He doesn't make that determination, he said.
I'll ask Mr. Ejak then when he testifies. Now, you did testify that one important thing was that you did not want Mrs. Crumbley's son to be alone after you thought he was so sad and experiencing so much sadness, correct?
I did not feel that it was wise for a student with signs that could be suicidal ideation and things that I saw as suicidal ideation to be alone.
Now, when you spoke to Mrs. Crumbley's son, he also wanted to be around other peers that afternoon.
He stated that he wanted to be in school. I don't remember him specifically stating anything about other peers.
Do you recall telling Mr. and Mrs. Crumbley that it would be good for him to be around other peers versus being alone?
I don't remember specifically stating that to them.
Is that something that you believe, and if you can't answer the question, just please let me know.
What is your question?
My question is that something that you believe, that it would have been better for him to be around peers that afternoon versus being left home alone?
It's the judgment call I made.
I'm sorry, what was that?
That is the judgment call I made, was that I felt it was better for him to be around peers and people who are his age than to be home alone.
Thank you. May I have just a moment, Your Honor? I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you.
That was surprisingly,
You were asked about the total.
it was surprisingly shorter than I expected.
With you. On November the 30th, when you met with Jennifer Crumbley, did she tell you that on March the 9th of 2021, her son had texted her that he was seeing demons and bowls flying off the shelf?
I did not.
Okay, so did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that on March the 17th, her son had also texted her that he was hallucinating?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that on March the 20th, he had texted his mother that he was hallucinating?
Your Honor, I would ask that the prosecution stop the leading questions.
Judge, I'm just trying to get through redirect in a timely fashion, and this is specifically in response to her.
I don't know how he can ask it another way.
I'm not suggesting the answer, Judge. I'm just...
Yeah, he's not suggesting the answer. He's asking a specific question. It's a yes or no question, right?
Thank you, Judge.
He's not suggesting the answer, so.
Thank you.
If you could read the last one.
Sure. Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that her son texted her on March the 20th, 2021, that he was hallucinating?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that in April of 2001, she had told a friend of hers that she thought Ethan was depressed?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that she had referred to her son as weird?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that she had never once set an appointment with any mental health professional?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that his only hobby was involving firearms?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that she posted on Instagram as early as June of 2021 that he had obtained his own handgun?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that the day before the shooting at 3 o'clock in the morning, she herself was researching clinical depression options?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you
That makes her look more active. Like, if she's researching clinical depression options the day before the shooting, that makes her look pretty responsible in some ways, right?
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you
I mean, you know,
on November the 30th, 2021, it wasn't the first time he asked for help?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that the gun that he drew on that math worksheet was identical to the 6 Sauer 9mm handgun that was
Your
used in
Honor,
the shooting?
I object to the prosecution's characterization that that drawing is identical. That's a conclusion that
Sustained.
That's fine. Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that the day before, on November the 29th, on that Monday, the day before, after the voicemail was left for her from Pam Fine, she texted her son and said, LOL, you have to learn not to get caught?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley ever tell you that James Crumbley worked for DoorDash and had no obligation to not take their son home?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that on November the 30th, she was permitted to leave work when she needed for family issues?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you that on November the 30th, the meeting that she allegedly had in the afternoon, she was not required to attend?
No.
Did Jennifer Crumbley tell you ever that their son was struggling throughout the year 2021?
She confirmed it based on what he had said regards to COVID and virtual school.
But they never went through these details.
Not these details, no.
So it took you all about 20 minutes to decide to request Jennifer Crumbley to come into the school immediately. Is that what you testified to?
Yes.
Is that the total picture that you wish you had?
No.
Now, what if Jennifer Crumbley had told you all of these things I just went through?
Your Honor, objection is to speculation.
Speculation.
Hindsight is 2020.
Sustained.
Would you like to have as much information as you possibly could have?
Absolutely.
Was their son still in the room in your office when the defendant said she couldn't take him home?
Yes.
Nothing further.
All right, you can step down. You're excused. You guys want a break? Okay, so we're gonna take like 10 minutes, okay?
Uncivil might take 10 minutes himself, to be honest. So Uncivil needs a little stretch break. Well, that was surprisingly shorter than I expected it to be, but it definitely highlighted. I expected it to go on longer and more laboriously, but perhaps the defense attorney realized that was not a good strategy and kept it a little bit tighter, which I don't object to. And it didn't get too sing-songy or boring, which was nice. I was able to remain lucid through that, so that was pleasant. And she got kind of what she needed out of him, right? Essentially, like, you weren't concerned about this, right?
Okay.
Can I have just the option so I can get my folders at least out?
As soon as we know.
So this is. Okay, then I'm
We need
gonna
to make
have
sure we have the right person.
I'm gonna need like.
So it was pretty good. And then, you know, of course, the redirect is kind of what you expect. Like, here's a whole bunch of information you didn't have, right? So, like, yeah, you didn't draw these conclusions, here's a threat, but then again, you didn't have all this information that she had. And so, you know, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you'd expect. So, yeah, good for me. I like both. Questions are convoluted? Nah, questioning is fine. I appreciate that she wasn't so laborious about it, though. $12 to 1. I don't know. I think my classes were larger than that, especially in high school, were larger than that. And by the time I went to college and university, they're certainly much larger than 12 to 1. So I don't know if that's the magic number. But okay. Yeah, I think even in elementary school I had classes at 20 or 23. I couldn't. It's been a long time, but yeah, I think classes bigger than 12 to 1 and seem to be okay for me. Would I saw God today be something that should cause concern? I don't know. It depends on the other context of things. High school classes were 30-ish, elementary 20, 25. That sounds about right. That sounds about right. Your whole graduating class was 45. That's funny. What do you need? 2 teachers to teach 45? $27 to 1. Yeah, that sounds, yeah, 30 per, yeah, 30. That sounds right. Yeah. 14 to 1. That's some sort of pipe dream. I've never heard of that. 14 to 1. Then in college, you do lectures and it's like 300 to 1. Yeah. Tony, you think you found the boot? Timberland boots. Premium water. Okay, let's see if Tony found the boot. Yeah, it could be. It looks like a lower crop version of that, Tony, but I think you got the right idea. It looks like it's a half boot, but I think you're, yeah, and also this is a woman's boot, but yeah. No, I think Tony's got the right idea. Or no, this is a men's boot. I'm sorry. Tony's got the right idea. Yeah. Yeah, that looks pretty close. Right kind of tread, right kind of thing. Yeah, it's pretty close. His seems like a half boot though. So, but yeah, this 6-inch, yeah. So maybe a smaller version of that. Where'd I go to college? I went to Clemson. Go Tigers. It's there on my shelf, although it's out of focus. But yeah, go Tigers. I went to Clemson. Let's see. Yeah, men's. They make like a half boot. This is like closer with the tread. If we got the right tread, looks closer. The Chukka shoe. If we got a Chukka with a tread, I think we're close. We're pretty there. It's there. We're trying to figure out what boot the juror is wearing. We see the juror's boots, and we're trying to figure out what boot they have. Yeah, maybe something like this. This mid hiking boot. Something like that, maybe. The defense attorney is very experienced. For better or worse. Right behind for the short one, yeah. It looks like a half boot. But Yeah. What's up with the boot talk? We've seen that we've seen one of the jurors' boots. We've seen one of the jurors' boots, and we're trying to figure out what kind of boot it is because we're interested in boots. So we're trying to figure out what kind of boot the juror is wearing. Clark Rossdale. I think we looked at that before. Clark Rossdale. They could be a Clark Rossdale. Rossdale Med. It could be. Yeah, it could be a Clark Rossdale. The tread looks more aggressive though than the Rossdale. The tread looks more aggressive than the Rossdale boot does. Yeah. I don't think it's the right tread. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's the right tread for the Clark. But you're in the right idea. You get the right idea. Yeah, so. Okay, well, that was interesting. Yeah, I don't care. I don't need the language. I just need the picture. Yeah, so that's the sort of the right idea. But the boot that we're looking at has a more aggressive tread than this. So, yeah. I don't think that's it. Footwear forensics, yeah. Yeah, it's an ankle boot. It's an ankle boot. Kind of looks like a chukka with a more aggressive tread. In Legally Blonde, the shoes did help break the case. This is true. What we need is a hiking chukka. Is that even a thing? No. No. When's the Daz trial come up? I think he's scheduled for like a month from now or something. I forget. Does the boot suggesting leaning guilty or not guilty? I don't know. Am I going to cover Alex Murdoch's questioning if I ever find time? Yes. I don't know where we're going to find the time, but I want to. We're stuck in the middle of this for the moment. Do you guys have a picture of it? No, we don't have a picture of it. We haven't taken a live capture. Although we could go back in time and watch it from earlier in the stream. So give me a second and I'll find the place on stream and we can do some more CSI forensics. Come on. See if we can get a good shot of this boot. All right, yeah. So here's the bottom of the boot. You know, so we got this sort of, you see this kind of aggressive hiking boot pattern here. Rimmed around the edge, and it looks like it's got some sort of aggressive tread in the center. Yeah. And then, if we can find another picture of the boot. Oh, here is another one from the side. You got this pattern. Maybe it's not as aggressive as I thought it was. Yeah. Maybe it's not aggressive as I thought it of. So it could be... It could be some sort of, like, yeah. It's a 5'11". You think it's 5'11"? 5'11" could be. The treads are more aggressive, similar style. It could be 5'11". Yeah. And we need a channel. We need a 5'11" half boot. No, that looks wrong. What size? I don't know, 10? Something like that? Yeah. So we're working on the boot forensics over here. About an 11. Could be a dock. No, it can't be a dock. It doesn't have the right it doesn't have the yellow threading on the side. It's not a dock. And the fabric of the shoe is wrong for a dock. Blundstone? Let's check out Blundstone. Maybe it's a Blundstone. Blundstone half boot. Okay, this looks maybe this. Yeah, that looks pretty interesting. Or Clark half boot. Can't quite find anything quite right. Looks like suede. Yeah, I think it does look like suede. It's like a suede. Yeah, suede half boot. Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer, for upgrading this uncivilian membership at $5.99 tier. That's very generous. Thank you for being such a great supporter of the channel. We really do appreciate everyone who helps to support this channel and make it grow. Reminder, you can join for as little as 99 cents a month by just hitting that beautiful, beautiful join button. And then you get, you know, icons by your name, and you get some cool emojis, and you get some members-only content, such as gaming streams. Plus, you don't have to wait for the slow down filter on chat. That's nice. And you also get to support the channel. We appreciate your upgraded membership. Thank you very, very, very much. It's very kind of you. Thank you, Moselle Conger, for helping to become an uncivilian. We do appreciate everyone who hits that beautiful, beautiful join button. Even 99 cents a month, less than a third of the price of a cup of coffee. You can support Uncivil Law for an entire month. You can't find a cup of coffee for $1, but you can support Uncivil for $1. It's a good deal, man. It's a good deal. Plus, I get to eat. That's nice. Bionic, isn't that the company that Doc Martin was or something? The same makers as made Doc Martin made that company, or am I thinking of something else? I wear Docs. I work Doc, Oxfords and Oxblood. I like them very much. You're gonna rant when I hear the Murdaugh hearing? Yeah, I've already heard tell. And we're already ranting about the Murdaugh hearing. It sounds like a total shit show. I don't know where we're gonna find the tents. Is Vyvanse good? I like it. I speak highly of it. So it worked. It worked for me. Here's one. This looks kind of close. Okay, this is looking pretty promising for the boot. This is the closest I've seen so far for the boot. This is Bogey in the suede with the tread and the half boot. You get that in gray, man, and you're on your way, man. Pretty good. Looks more like a gray to me than a green, but price? That one is $200. It's Italian from Milano. Whew-wee. Yeah, it looks like a gray. Hmm. Full 6-inch boot with suede or a nubuck lower, regular leather cushion. Hmm. You dig the dancing deer on the seal? The seal's pretty cool. Oh, okay. Here's a Clark's one. It's kind of close. Clark's ankle boot. This one's actually not too bad. Here's a Clark's ankle boot in gray. That's close too. Yeah. Excuse me. So that soul reminds you of cat boots or Wolverines or Tim's? The Prophet Finley men's suede chukka boot? Really? Really? No, wrong tread. Yeah, wrong tread. I do drink coffee. Why do you ask, Buttercup? I could really use a cup right about now, to be quite honest.
Yeah. Oh, we watched the video on Saturday. That's one we watched. Oh, and he did, what you guys were working on.
All right.
Favorite coffee brand? I drink HEB coffee. Why not? They make good coffee.
Yes.
They make a nice creme brulee that's very nice, and I'd really like a cup right about now. I may take a break while the next witness is getting started and make myself some coffee, because I could really use a cup. I'll wait till the next witness gets started and then I'll make some coffee.
the next witness?
Sergeant Joe Bryan.
Sergeant Joe Bryan. All right, who are you to us?
Do you swear or affirm the testimony about to give is a case I'll help you down?
I do, Your Honor.
Okay, so, step up, have a seat, and state your name for the record, spell your first and last name.
Joe Bryan, Joebrian.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Sir, how are you employed?
Employed as a detective sergeant with the Ethan County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. Can you keep your voice nice and loud, please?
All right.
Thank you. Now, Sergeant, where do you work within the Sheriff's Office?
I'm assigned to the Special Investigations Unit.
Okay, what do you do there?
We conduct major investigations, internal affairs, assist a lot of other departments. Anything kind of big we at least help out with.
Okay. Now, November the 30th, 2021, were you working that day?
I was.
Okay. Were you assigned to assist in the investigation of the Oxford High School shooting?
I was.
Okay. And at this time, how long have you been with the Sheriff's Office?
At that time, 27 years and some change.
Okay. So you're with the Special Investigative Unit now. Where did you work prior to that?
Same spot since 2011.
Okay. What about prior to that?
I ran the computer crimes unit for about 8 years. Prior to that, sergeant in jail, sergeant or detective out in Highland, and then the jail and road.
All right. So, did you actually respond to the Oxford High School shooting scene? Did you respond to the shooting scene itself?
Not initially.
Okay. Were you directed to the Oxford substation, the sheriff's office?
I was.
Okay. And for what purpose?
To attempt to do some interviews.
Okay. Now, by the time that you had arrived at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office substation in Oxford, was the school shooter already in custody?
Yes, he was.
Okay. And was he brought to that location?
He was.
Okay. And during the course of your investigation, did you learn who the school shooter's parents are?
I did.
Okay. And his mother is Jennifer Crumbley?
She is.
She's in court today?
Yes, she is wearing the dark blazer. At the defense counsel.
The record will reflect the in-court identification of the defendant, Jennifer Crumbley.
Thank you. Once you learned who the school shooter's parents were, did you attempt to speak with those individuals?
I did.
Okay, and tell us how that came to be.
I called him up and had him come to the substation to talk to me.
Okay, so you learned the identities of James and Jennifer Crumbley and you made a phone call.
Correct.
Okay, so on Friday we introduced evidence of call logs that showed you contacted James Crumbley about 1:50 in the afternoon, November the 30th. Does that sound accurate to you?
That sounds about right.
Okay. And when you made that phone call, what did you tell them to do?
Just come to the substation.
In Oxford?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and did they arrive there?
They did.
Do you recall approximately the time they arrived there?
Probably around 2. We didn't wait much for them to get there.
Okay. And again, on Friday there was evidence of their GPS data locations that indicate they were there at 1:58 p.m. Does that sound accurate to you?
Yes, sir.
All right. When you conduct interviews with individuals pertaining to investigation, criminal investigation, are those interviews generally recorded?
Most of the time.
Is that audio recorded as well as video recorded?
When available, yes.
Okay. Does the Oxford substation, the sheriff's office, have the capability to record interviews in such a fashion?
They did and do.
Okay. So on November the 30th, 2021, did you interview both James and Jennifer Crumbley?
I did.
Okay. And was that interview recorded?
It was.
Have you had the opportunity to review that recording?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Does that recording fairly and accurately depict your interview with James and Jennifer Crumbley on November the 30th, 2021?
It does.
Judge, that's People's 340. People move to admit.
We have no objection.
340 is admitted.
Thank you, Judge. I'm going to play it for the jury, but before we do, I just want to confirm with you, Sergeant, that the recording that we're going to introduce as evidence is Exhibit 340. It has a date and time stamp. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, but that time stamp is actually an hour off.
That's correct.
Okay, is that daylight savings time?
I don't know why it's off
Okay.
an hour. I really don't.
That's fair. But we know that they arrived at 1:58 in the afternoon, and did you speak with them immediately after they arrived?
Yes.
Okay, so that would be the time you spoke with them, not 2:58.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
How long is it, Sergeant? Do you know?
The video?
Yeah.
Like 15 minutes probably.
Okay.
It's
Not
around,
very long.
around 20 minutes or so.
Okay.
So Sergeant, as I get this queued up, this would have been right after they found out that their son was taken into custody for the Oxford High School school shooting?
Correct.
Just so we can identify everybody. This is you in the blue shirt,
Yes, it is.
and the individual to your left in the video is who?
My partner, Rob Miller.
Okay. Individual with the hat,
James Crumbley,
and the female in the video.
Jennifer Crumbley.
Okay. And again, this is 1:58 and 59 seconds, November 30th, 2021.
Yes, sir.
So, we have obviously we don't know all what happened yet because everything's still ongoing. It's our understanding that he wasn't involved in a school shooting. He was the one who did everything. He said he acted alone. That's basically the only thing we've asked him so far because there's word about other students or other people who've done the virus. Want to use some questions for you, or ask you some questions first before we even start talking to him. Is there, I hate to stop you. Is it possible for me to have a word? My mouth is full. Yes, I'll get one. Super dry, breaking out. Say that first, you know.
Was there any fatalities involved?
And we do not know. There are several people who've been shot though. This is my partner get back. We'll get into it with him a little bit. But we really need to talk to him. Of course, we can't do that.
Very good morning.
That's what I understand. But we'll talk about that.
You've never done anything bad.
Jennifer, what is your date of birth? Last name is also Crumbley. And Kate, what is your date of birth? So, we're coming in this very early, but when I say there was an issue recently, was that? This morning. What went down this morning? Well, he was writing, yes, show them the picture.
He was doodling on a test or a practice test.
Do you think we should probably have a lawyer?
That's up to you.
I think we probably should have a lawyer.
I think we can speak
I know.
to the cops and
Just
we'll
be
answer these.
And here's our perspective right now. This thing is still very, very fresh.
right.
All right, people are still on their way to the hospital and such. We need to know what his state of mind is. Is there explosive devices anywhere? Is there other guns anywhere? Did he hide guns, ammunition, explosive devices? Are there any other victims? We need to know these things quite rapidly.
I was in town. I saw all you guys go to Ontario. When I see 5, I start concerned. I headed to the high school, obviously couldn't get to the high school, turned into the Meyer parking lot, and I saw all these kids standing outside. I'm trying to call my son, make sure he's okay, and
He texted me that he loved me.
He actually did.
and somebody said that there was an active shooter.
35 minutes
I
before he called me
immediately,
about his
freaked out
I was
because
down
of
to the school.
the
He
situation.
was drawing that on the paper and the cops would call it down.
So really, you can't even
I don't know.
What did the text say?
No, but it was texted to me
Oh.
from the counselor.
From the counselor.
I texted Ethan at 12:21, you okay? He said, yeah, just got back from lunch. I said, said, you know, you can talk to us, we won't judge. He goes, I know, thank you, I'm sorry for that, I love you. I said, I love you too. And then, you okay? And you're back. And then he told me about what's going on, and I freaked out, and I drove here from work. And
That's where we're at.
that's where we're at.
What time did you text him?
That was at 12:21, and he was just getting back from lunch.
So you guys had a meeting with the counselor this morning over
Yeah.
the school?
Yeah.
I said real quick against this. What, was it the first hour, second one, what time was it?
I got to school at 10:30, I don't know whatever.
So it would have been earlier, first or second hour, I don't know.
And what did he say?
I mean, he just said he was sorry, he just said, you know,
Does he have an issue, like being kicked down?
No.
Or?
No.
not that we know of. His best friend, his parents just sent him somewhere to Wisconsin for an OCD rehabilitation. That was his only friend that he had. They hung out all the time, hung out at school. Our dog, our Great Pyrenees, just passed away a couple months ago. My mom died back in April. So that's
So John, what's the rest going on?
They didn't.
Did you guys go over this with him, like what does that with the totals? Anybody ask him what the total was?
No, the counselor just.
the counselor just said, you know, there's no.
I didn't even, honestly, I didn't even think about that. 'Cause
I mean, it's Ethan. Like Ethan's he's a perfect kid. Like he doesn't do anything. He doesn't get in trouble at school. He doesn't
is that how?
Yeah, there's no closed caption on the original video either, so we're just stuck with what we got. You know how court audio goes, guys.
hidden in our in the case, and the bullets were hidden in a completely different spot
Yeah.
underneath some jeans. I was raised home. And I'm the guy that
After you saw all the cops?
after I saw
Got my
the cops,
coffee now, by the way.
an active shooter, after
Have HEB creme brulee. Just have some ice in there too to cool it down because I don't like my coffee. I don't like my coffee hot.
I called you guys right
So-
away, let you know.
Should be good.
Where, how far away is your guys'
Yep.
from the high school?
Problem is they didn't explicitly state they want a lawyer. They asked if they should have one. Yep, that's the problem. That's the problem.
It's really right in the village.
The cop is under no obligation to answer your question.
What we'd like to do, is
To have a lawyer, he can completely ignore you.
and obviously you mentioned earlier about a lawyer.
Yep,
He is totally entitled to one.
that is not invoking your rights.
You guys, this is
We would like.
I'm messaging Andy right now.
Okay. Can Andy handle?
Andy can get me something.
We would like a lawyer present
more good any question.
from here on out. Okay. And there's no disrespect to you guys. It's okay. It's just we don't. I don't want to on this one. I only see this stuff on TV.
That's cool.
All I know is I got talked to the counselor about that. He talked to me, and we went down there. And
All you have to say
that's all.
is, I want a lawyer.
Be worried about it.
I want to remain silent.
He's remote and stay at school.
Just say that.
And I really wish we
Only that.
could get him home.
I want a lawyer. I want to remain silent. Just do that.
Is this, or is that, you can help here, for the time being, he's been arrested once. He's going to, either jail or children's military for a short time. So we're going to talk to him. So,
Did they read her Miranda?
that's where we're at. Any,
Or she just came down? Is this a voluntary interview?
you were,
He said he gets anxiety, or chest, maybe or something.
I'm not even sure they read her Miranda. I'm not sure they have to.
Like that you have normally, you might need to bring to no meds, no, is there no treatment for mental health, anything like that? Give me 1 second, I'm gonna get a confinement form, because there's maybe a lot of stuff we have to ask them, as far as just like.
They just said it?
One of you guys can go with us.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know, bro. So give me 1 minute to the form.
I can't speak to her husband. Well, if she doesn't, they can talk to her. They can talk to her.
You're.
So the husband says, I want a lawyer. Okay, we can't talk to him, but we can keep talking to her. And if he wants to pipe up, that's on him.
Any trouble with them with the law or anything?
Nothing.
Everybody's suspended?
Nothing. No, I mean.
And also, incidentally, that would be a suppression issue as it relates to him. So, assuming that he invoked his right to a lawyer and assuming that these are invalid questions because he invoked his right to a lawyer, that's a suppression issue for him because he invoked his rights, and we're not on the trial of him right now, are we? So it doesn't matter. Thank you very much for the $10 on Twitch. I do appreciate your contribution. Yep, he kept talking. That pretty much waives the right. Yeah. It may very well come up for him, but it doesn't come up for her. She didn't invoke her rights, so no issue as to her. You should never go into the police for a voluntary interview, by the way. Is the police ever... Yeah, I always like that in Law and Order, where they like go to the person's place or what place of business is like, let's go downtown. I'm like, let's not. You know? We're going to take you downtown. No, you're not. I'm not under arrest. Screw you. Just don't do it.
Not Facebook, Instagram.
Just I want a lawyer. I want an attorney would be fine. I want to remain silent. Could they read her Miranda? Sure, but they don't have to if it's not custodial. If it's not custodial, they don't have to read her Miranda. If she can walk out any time, it's not custodial. So they don't have to read you Miranda. Because you can just leave. Yep.
They loaded bags. They were empty when you swear. They were empty, the gun was empty, the bullets were in a completely different place. I mean, I don't know. You guys bought 100 when you went to the shooting.
We bought 200.
Be like the Petitos. Keep your mouth shut. Hire a lawyer.
I don't remember.
Hope the lawyer doesn't screw you on the civil side.
Okay, then he only bought 100 rounds. And so you guys spent 50. So yeah, we go to the shooting range all the time. He goes with you. So no.
Yes. I've been trying to teach them safety, and I mean,
It was a hobby that they did together, sure. Still not gonna release his name, are they?
He's a juvenile, they won't do that.
Hmm?
No, they will not. He's a juvenile, they won't release him.
I'm not sure what kind of room they're in, and I'm not sure what that is on the wall, to be honest. It just looks like an interrogation room to me. Nothing fancy about it. I mean, interrogation rooms are usually pretty bland. This looks like a standard interrogation room to me. Could be a handcuff bar. That's possible. And notice where the parents are sitting versus the cops. The cops are sitting nearer to the door to make it harder for them to leave. Subtle psychological pressure, right? Because it makes it more difficult for you to leave. Because the cops are sitting in between you and the door. Mm-hmm. Just invoke your right to remain silent. Just invoke your rights, please. Just do that. That'd be great.
Jennifer, what's your number?
Could I try calling him and telling him those emergencies tomorrow right now? I don't do it.
Jennifer Lynn?
The guy sitting next to the prosecutor is apparently the lead detective. I'm not sure why they're sitting next to the prosecutor. I'm also not sure why they're allowed to, you know, wear their badge and stuff. It's very odd. Me.
We always take a couple places to involve with. You guys want to pop up? I'll leave your phones in here. I'll walk in and see basic information.
Is this Ethan?
Ethan, how tall are you? 5'11"? How much do you weigh? 180. Eye color? Blue, grayish. Hair color? Brown or brown. Okay, so we were going to ask you a bunch of questions about why you did this and get your whole side of the story. Your parents want to retain insurance, so we'll not be asking you any questions about the incident that you were involved in. Your parents popped in here to get some basic information. You will have a contact with them eventually. We'll be taking you to either Oakland County Jail or Children's Village forthwith, get you lodged after we take all your clothes and everything else you have on you. Any questions for me? You have to ask, it's up to you. If you want to ask me something, go ahead.
I don't think we need to ask any questions right now.
Okay, pop up. I'll back up.
You say you're extra.
Why?
I did.
I love you. I love you. I love you. I love you. You guys can.
Okay.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
Yeah, the police are obviously playing on their emotions. Of course they do. They will use every tool in their tool bag. They'll play on your sorrow. They'll play on your fear. They'll play on your anger. They'll play on any emotion you have. They'll use any tool at their disposal. They are shameless. They are shameless. Invoke your rights, people. Invoke your rights. Just say, I want to remain silent. Just say, I want a lawyer. Just say that.
Day or two, could be today, could be tomorrow. Hey, look what he did, right? So right now,
He did plead guilty. He pled guilty. He is appealing his sentence, but he pled guilty.
Okay.
Yeah, the police will use anything they can. There are some limits, but not much.
Sergeant Bryan, the person we heard sobbing at the very end, was that the defendant or is that her husband?
Oh, James.
Your Honor, I would object. They're both crying at the end. I think that's misleading.
The only one who can
I
make
think
that
it's- okay.
is Sergeant Bryan.
Okay, well, he has personal knowledge. You can,
Yeah.
you can rely on the evidence that you see.
Did they request a lawyer for their son right away? I don't know.
All the evidence will be available for you when you deliberate as well.
I don't know the details of that.
Sergeant Lee had some clauses in there. That's
I don't think so.
Personal information was being obtained from the defendants?
Correct.
Okay. Judge, I'm going to move to admit the transcript of the
Of course, if it were my child, it would be interesting because I'm also an attorney.
Garbled over the...
So I could be like, yeah, can you leave me alone with my client?
Any objection?
Your Honor,
Lol.
I have not seen 424. They have not sent it to me.
We can...
So-
Feel free to take a look at my copy while we can...
Okay,
The court can withhold the ruling.
Subject to review. You can let me know in the next 2 days. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, and likely, no objection, but I need to see it. Thanks.
This is a transcript.
Yes, Judge.
All right.
That would be 424. We'll revisit tomorrow.
Yeah, let me know. Let me know this.
Okay, we'll do.
Certainly. And Sergeant Bryan, what was your impression of the defendant's demeanor throughout the interview?
Atypical from what I'm used to on something like that.
What do you mean?
Your Honor, I would object as to the foundation, lack of foundation for this.
Hey, sure. Sergeant Bryan, you've been in the Sheriff's Office for 29 years now?
Yep, a couple months.
Okay. And you've been with the Special Investigative Unit for over 10 years?
Yes.
Okay, and you already told us that is the unit within the Sheriff's Office that handles the major investigations?
Yes.
Okay, that includes internal affairs?
Correct.
And it includes homicides?
Correct.
How many interviews of either witnesses or suspects of crimes have you think you've been a part of?
5,000, maybe
Okay.
more.
This is something you do on a day-to-day basis?
Every day.
Okay. And you described the defendant's demeanor as atypical?
Correct.
Okay. And tell us why.
Your Honor, I would object as to this witness's opinion when the jury can see what's in the video. Every person in life reacts differently. This is very grossly unfair and prejudicial.
That's argument. The counsel's free to make
Isn't
that
the best
argument.
evidence of how she reacted to the video itself?
Well, I think an officer with 30 years of experience is in a unique position to give that testimony.
I think the jury can decide for themselves. The jury's going to see the evidence.
Interesting. Judge said no. I would have thought she would have gone the other way. She invokes best evidence rule too.
Is normal.
The video is the best evidence of the thing, so we don't need him to testify. Interesting
It's how
ruling.
people react when your children.
Okay.
You've had
All right.
cases
I respect
with
that.
children being charged.
Yes, not a school shooting, but yes, I've had many cases where kids have done bad things.
Okay.
I've had to tell the parents.
And you've had to tell the parents that?
Yes.
Okay. And what you experienced on November the 30th was not consistent with what you
Your Honor,
experienced in the
I
past?
object again. Same thing.
That was the court's question.
I didn't hear the question.
I was just following up with the court's question, Judge, that in his experience, he's had the opportunity to interview parents of a juvenile who's done something illegal.
What's a common reaction that you experience?
Crying, disbelief, why, those
Your
kind of
Honor,
things are in there.
Again, I object. It's irrelevant and it's prejudicial.
Did you just
and
object to the judge's question?
no
That's pretty
parents
ballsy.
Have had a child, their child, is committing school
That's pretty
do.
ballsy.
said,
He just objected
"This
to the
is
judge's
such a
question.
different
Okay.
case." Well, he said in his experience, he hasn't talked to anyone else with a school shooting.
He said he's dealt with children who've done very bad things, right?
This is like bad, 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 though. I mean, this is
Yeah.
like.
Well, we're going to move on anyway. You guys can watch the video and decide for yourselves, okay?
I've nothing further, thank you.
Okay.
You know, I could use the audio. Not really. No. I've already got it cranked up to -20. If I make it any louder, it might compete with my audio too much. That was the problem we were having earlier.
Confronted with news about their child.
Yes.
And
Is the thing working now where it's filtering down a little bit when I speak? Check 1 2 1 2. Check 1 2 1 2.
Prior to
A little bit.
this
All right, I
date,
can bring it up a
you
little
had
bit.
never met Ethan Crumbley.
No.
So whether their reaction was even normal. for
Trying to
how
get
they
the audio
normally
levels
react,
right so
you
it
wouldn't
I
even
can
know
speak
that.
over it is a little challenging sometimes. And my voice is obviously
I
more
don't think
important,
either.
so there's that.
Just briefly.
Your Honor, I do have one question. If I could just have a moment.
But I brought it up to -18, so. And my voice is capped at -10. 8 decibels is a fair amount of difference,
I
but
was just
still.
asking about an exhibit, Your Honor, that's listed through Sergeant Bryan, but it's coming in through a different.
Okay.
Okay. I'm just trying to make sure I'm keeping track.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
That was only, the video was the. and the
Maybe I
pictures
need some
were the
sort of
ones.
Correct.
hardware
Okay.
thing to do the mix. Maybe I need some sort of hardware mixer.
Situation and scrolling through her phone during this interview.
No.
I don't really want more kit though.
Your Honor, I object as to relevance, and she's giving the phone to him. I at least asked for recross.
You can ask him another question if you want. Go ahead, go ahead.
While Mrs. Crumbley is showing you things from her phone during the interview, correct?
She showed me the picture, yes, ma'am.
And she's trying to zoom in on the picture, and the thing won't zoom in, correct?
Correct.
And she's sitting there scrolling, looking for it on other messages and threads. Or
I don't know.
you don't know?
I don't
Okay,
know.
fair enough. Thank you.
Okay, you can step down and
Thank
make
you, Your
this.
Honor.
Thank you.
Was that it? Was that all the cross? Okay, that was short. Wow. All right, that was weird, but fine. I guess there wasn't much more to say than that. I didn't even really know we had entered cross-examination phase, to be honest. Between the objections, I wasn't even sure we had entered cross-examination. Did we enter cross-examination? I guess we must have. Damn. It's so confusing between the objections and the speaking objections. I was like, I missed the fact that we apparently moved on to cross. Did anyone else notice that we moved on to cross? Because I missed it. Am I running a hardware-based sound card? No. I've got a Focusrite. I've got a Focusrite Solo interface, which just uses USB-C to feed into the computer. So that's what I have. Just the simple Focusrite Solo, which I love. It does great. I don't need more than one input, so I don't need anything fancy. You know, I only have one mic, so the Solo is perfectly fine. And yeah, it just feeds into the computer using actually USB-A, because USB-A on the other side. So yeah. And then the sound card stuff is just built into the computer. I'm not sure the last time I had a sound card on my computer. That would have been a long time ago, baby. Long time ago. It was recross? Was it? Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. I suppose it was recross. You're right. So she asked like a question on recross? Okay, fine. But we got a pretty good setup going. Although for some reason, sometimes I get this buzzing noise in my earphones from my interface. That's a relatively new problem, and I'm not sure what that's all about. So yeah. Audiophiles prefer hardware. I appreciate that, but I'm trying to keep my setup simple. I really don't want like a big piece of hardware on my desk. I don't want something really fancy and really complicated to take up a lot of space to fix what is a relatively minor problem. So I'll fix it in software. I mean, we fixed a lot of stuff in hardware already. We've got this wonderful this wonderful Shure SM7B microphone. And then we've got, I even upgraded to this super, like this heavy duty XLR cable. I think it's called Big Hound or something. It's for touring. It's like, so it's a really thick like a really thick and really durable XLR cable because it's meant for touring. And so like it won't break and shit. So that seemed good. And it's called Pig Hog. I don't know. Apparently it was recommended. I did some searching on it. And then we got the wonderful boom arm from Elgato, which is a glorious thing. We got the interface, Focusrite interface, which is fantastic. It's simple. It doesn't do much. I don't need to do much. It works.
Under the law, the evidence you are to consider to decide the case must meet certain standards. For example, witnesses must swear to tell the truth, and the lawyers must be able to cross-examine them. Because news reports do not have to meet these standards, they can give you incorrect or misleading information that might unfairly favor one side.
And so I'm pretty happy with our audio setup, all things considered at this point.
Do not go on social media. Do not go on Facebook.
KL Burke gives 10 gift memberships. Thank you. So if we can get the compressor working properly so it will really do what I want to do, that'd be great. But other than that, the audio setup is sounding pretty good. And the aesthetic...
Easier for us to go through the exhibits while you're...
The aesthetic of having the microphone on screen is beginning to appeal to me.
Any questions about
because before I've made like basically every possible effort to not have the microphone on screen. So I always had it below me, and then when I got this one, I had like the little orange tip, you know, that was peeking out. But I made basically every possible effort to not have the microphone on screen. And I don't know, the aesthetic of having it on screen is beginning to appeal to me. I think I like it. I think I'm going to keep it. Yeah. Yeah, buzzing is usually a grounding issue. Broken or loosened ground.
Okay, so tell me what we're
Yeah, it's only intermittent though. It's only intermittent, and only seems to be doing it when I do like certain things in software. So I think it's a driver issue actually.
Those are the exhibits that council objects to. What I want to do is remove the specific exhibits.
Yeah, you need to flip the mic 180 degrees. That's funny because that's really funny. Because the nameplate is reversible in sort of which way you orient it. And it used to be the other way around. It used to be the other way around, and I flipped it around. Because in my old boom arm, the way I had it set up, this would have been right. It would have been right side up. But now in this setup, it's backwards again. So I have to change it again.
Yes.
I have to change it again.
Fix the exhibit list,
Okay,
and then I'll
sure.
get a copy to Ms. Smith as well as the court, and then I'll speak with Ms. Smith.
Okay.
And if we don't have a complete agreement, we'll let the court know, and then the court can make the eventual ruling.
Is that
That's funny.
Today?
Yes, Judge. If
Okay.
the court
The other thing I had to do recently on the microphone because of where the tightening screw was
I just have to
for the boom arm, I had to flip the yoke on the SM7B.
So you're gonna let me
So normally this part here,
it is okay if you sit
where it
here.
connects to the thing, would be in front.
Yeah.
So this is hardware attached, right? So normally this thing would be on top,
Please keep in mind
but I had to
that
flip the
there's-
yoke
are you
around,
guys still gonna
so now it's
go through-
backwards
Yeah, I don't know.
because of where the tightening cable was on the tightening nut was on the boom arm.
Clean up.
These little, so now I have a Shure SM7B that's backwards of basically everyone else's on the face of the planet. No one would notice this unless they're really looking.
I like this guy. Yeah, why don't we not record while they're going through exhibits, and then when we go back to on the record and make rulings about it, because she's going to talk.
Creative has a card made specifically for streaming. I'll have to check that out.
All right, good.
Thanks for the recommendation. Where'd you put a link for a good setup? Jeff, you can't post links in my chat. So if you have a link for me, Jeff, you have to post it on Discord or something, because I don't do links in my general chat, sorry. Or you have to give it to me in non-link form. I disabled links for anyone who wasn't a mod because that just seemed like a really good idea. So no one except the mods can post links in chat. I could get a screwdriver and reverse it while we're talking. It's not that hard. The screws are really small, though. It's on Discord, thanks. Yeah. Timberland men's 6-inch. Yeah, I think it's a shorter boot than that, but I like the idea, Tony. It could, yeah, it looks like a shorter boot. It doesn't look like a full 6-inch. You sent me a friend request or something? Where'd you send it to me on Discord? You just put it in general? You're going to email to me? Okay, cool. I'll take your email. Yeah. Links just seem like a bad idea. People being able to post links. This creative has, yeah, there's also new interfaces that have a capture card in it too. So they have an interface that also has a built-in capture card for HDMI. I'm not sure why you'd want to do that, but you could. I mean, I have a capture card that works fine. So it only can capture at 1080i or 1080p, but then again, my camera can only do 1080p, and I'm only streaming at 1080p. So what do I care? I love my microphone. It sounds really good with my voice. I love my microphone. It's badass and makes me sound all professional and stuff. I love my microphone. It will last forever. It will never die. If I break this microphone, I was trying really fucking hard. Yeah. I have a Sony Alpha 5100. It's way out of production these points, but I got it on Craigslist, I think for $200, like just before the pandemic, which was great timing, right? Or I guess it would have been technically just after the pandemic started. It must have been. Anyways, yeah, so I got this because this camera I think was $500 at the time. It's more expensive now, but the camera does great and it makes a very, very clear image. We had to put back on the kit lens because we had such problems with the non-kit lens, so that was sort of funny. We had this really nice piece of glass on it, but it was way too zoomed in, and so we had that for years. And then someone's like, this is just really too tight. And I was like, well, I just really like the prime lens because it's sharper. I was like, yeah, but so it's like we put back on the kit lens so that we could get the wider thing. And instead of, a 1.8 aperture, I have a 4.5 aperture. Oh well, life moves on. And it still looks great. The kit lens looks pretty great too. I mean, for a kit lens, it does a pretty good job, you know what I mean? Also, Tony is supposed to be making me a backplate for my microphone that has my logo on it. So, hypothetically, Tony is going to make me a new backplate, and then we'll put that on instead of the Shure one. Let's take a look at this thing that you sent me on Creative Sound Blaster. Okay, this is interesting. Creative Sound Blaster. What the hell is this? I think it's a little bit much for my needs. It's a little bit much for my needs, but thank you for the idea. You're doing jury duty this week, but there's talk of a transit strike. I can't afford Ubers. Will a judge excuse me? You'd have to bring that to the judge's attention, to be quite honest. So, or you'd have to call the courtroom or something. I can't advise you on that. I suppose the only thing I could do would be to say, call the clerk of court and ask for advice. Maybe they can give you something. But I don't know what the judge would or would not do in respect to that. So I can't really give you any advice beyond that. Yeah, call the clerk of court and see if they can give you a recommendation or help. They probably won't, but it's the only thing I can think to do. It's been a busy week. I know. I was just teasing you, Tony. I'm not mad. You don't owe me anything. The mods never owe me anything. I was just teasing. Our mods work for free, and we do really appreciate their help. I was just teasing you, Tony. I really like the work you did on the thumbnail, by the way, so there's something nice I can say about Tony, so I feel better. Tony's a good mod. I'm not particularly in a rush to replace the back plate, by the way. It also comes with a plain black plate, if you like that look, so you can just put a plain black one. And then, of course, a lot of people just leave it exposed on the back with the switches that are exposed, so you can do it that way, too. But, you know, yeah. I don't know. The plate kind of looks okay. In fact, it's upside down. It's just kind of mildly hilarious. We could flip it backwards again. We've already flipped it backwards once, so we can flip it backwards again. Yeah. Tony is an awesome mod for sure, 100%. He helps us a lot with Thursday Night Frenzy, Thursday Night Thunderdome. He does a lot of the story selection for that. He comes up with the wonderful thumbnails. He came up with the initial idea for the thumbnail for this. Then I modified that. Then he modified my modification, which was even better. He's a great moderator. He's good stuff. Thank you for the 230 of you who are tuning in. You say you've been called twice, never got to go. First time we were all dismissed. Second time was federal. Had to call every Sunday night for 6 months. Lol, that's annoying. I got called once for jury duty, but we never made it past everyone just shows up because they settled at the last minute, which is not uncommon. You know, the courthouse settlement, the courthouse step settlement is very, very real. As you're walking into court and like the truth of it comes out, that last second settlement is really, really real. So we didn't make it past everyone shows up and has to watch the really, really corny video about jury duty. And the other time I got called, I forgot about it. I forgot about it and didn't show up. And so I called the clerk and they're like, well, you're in luck because they wound up dismissing that entire group too. So you're off the hook. I was like, okay. Whew. You know. Yeah. If I ever get called for jury duty, I seriously doubt I'm going to make it. It's not going to be great, you know. Juror number 5. What's your name? My name is Kurt. Okay, Kurt, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a licensed attorney, but I don't practice anymore. What I do now is I run a legal commentary channel on YouTube where I discuss legal cases and provide legal analysis as it relates to ongoing trials and appeals. Thank you very much. We move to dismiss juror number 5. Yeah. Yeah. Probably not going to make it past question number 2. Maybe they won't think to ask. Maybe they won't think to ask. Yeah. You have jury due February 12th? There you go. You're way too well informed to be on a jury. Yeah, no way they want me. It's funny that way, isn't it? Because I'm incredibly legally educated and would presumably make a better decision on the law than pretty much most jurors, but they just specifically don't want me. Oh well. I run the cult of beefish. Yeah, it's an interesting cult to be sure. If they didn't ask, I'd hope to be excused. That could go south quickly. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. The state doesn't like engineers. We think too black and white. Yeah, I suppose that's true. So yeah, it's like, yeah, what kind of education do you have? Well, I have a computer science degree and a law degree. So, I can think both ways. I can think very black and white and think very abstractly. I have all the thinking. I'm both right brain and left brain thinking. I'm both very exacting and very floaty. Yeah. Yeah, I'm smart. I'm smart in multiple ways. But I think engineering isn't a bad way to go about it because, the law, sort of the questions you're trying to ask, is you're ultimately trying to come to a black and white conclusion, right? Guilt or not guilt is kind of black and white. There's not a lot of ways to slice that at the end. So your conclusion's pretty black and white. It's like, well, whatever. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What can I say about myself that won't get me in trouble? Tell me a little about myself. It's like, okay, my name's Kurt. Grew up in South Carolina. Graduated from college. Been living in Texas for about 3 years. It's a fun state. I like being here. I enjoy trying to meet up with friends and meeting and going to social events when I can. Somewhat introverted. That's a pretty good description of me. Professional trained jurors in the U.S., I don't think it's the worst idea we've ever heard of. All right, 231 people watching the stream right now. How can we get more people watching it? That's a really good question. What are we doing over here? MLS has 230, so he's about the same as me. Emily D. Baker has 31,000 people watching her on the Murdaugh stuff. That's a lot. Recovery Addict has 1,900 people watching his stream on the Oxford thing. Yeah, I've heard tell about the Crumbley. I've heard tell about the Murdaugh thing. We definitely want to try to find some time for it as we can. Who's my favorite author? Probably Orwell. Post on Facebook? I think I do automatically as a matter of course. Although I may not have that set up. I'd have to double check. But I think it automatically does post on Facebook. Yeah, I never heard of being able to get therapy the same day or even next day. Yeah. 100%. Start putting polls so they appear on the general page. We were doing polls for a while. Yeah, I need to remember to do that if I'm going to do that every day. Yeah. EDB's weekly streams get somewhere around 15K on the live. Rewatch is crazy. Yeah, Emily D. Baker has been crushing it. Where's she at subscribers as of late? Tune in where she is. She's at 741,000 subscribers, so she's dropped some subscribers. She's lost some subscribers. She's actually lost a lot of subscribers, actually. Wasn't she up in the 900s? Has Emily D. Baker lost 200,000 subscribers? Or am I just like tripping? Hold on. Let's see, what is her subscribers? Yeah, she's on a downward trend big time. Okay. So, all right. Yeah, she's on a downward trend. Yeah, she's on a pretty low downward trend. She's dropping a lot of subscribers recently. Yeah. Yeah, she was on the road to 1 million, but it looks like she's way down. So let's check her out. Social Blade. I'm denied access to Social Blade. That's yeah, EDB was like on the verge of 1 million. She was getting really, really close, as memory serves. I thought she was like 900 and change. She was getting really, really close. I'm trying to pull up her Social Blade right now, but Social Blade is not cooperating with me for some reason. Let's see. Check her subscriber count. Future projections. Detailed statistics. Subscribers. Yeah, she's not gaining anything, that's for sure. Total subscribers since January. She's up a little bit since January. Is it January 23? That's January of last year. So yeah, maybe, yeah, she's up a little bit, but she's having problems. At least at the moment. I thought she was bigger than that too. Yeah, she's not. She seems to be flatlined at best. Oh yeah, she had a huge spike in May 2022. She gained like 400,000 subs, and then she's been just flatlined, which is not so bad because I've been pretty flatlined overall too. Yeah, my subs are pretty flatlined. Well, it's actually a little bit better than hers recently, but not by much. Interesting. The most you ever saw her at was in the high 700s. Maybe I was wrong. I thought she was higher than that, but maybe my memory's just failing me. So maybe she didn't lose 200,000 subscribers. Maybe she's just been flat. Maybe my memory's wrong. Well, this is for subscriber rank, according to Playboard, she's definitely way down. Yeah, she's dropped a lot on Playboard for summary since 2023. Yeah, so yeah, since last year she's up 2,000 total subscribers. So she's not growing, but she's huge, and she has a lot of live streams now. So, and she's got 31,000 people watching her, and her revenue's got to be going great. I'm sure she does killer in revenue, where I'm like barely squeaking by in revenue. Interesting. Legal Bites has 484 on Murdaugh right now. Nothing's going on in court right now. Oh, the jury went home for the day? Oh, okay, the jury's been apparently sent home for the day. So they're both going through evidence. Okay, the jury's home for the day. Oh, okay. Well, we could just switch off and just do Murdaugh then, because we're kind of done here for hearing. So maybe we'll just pick up Murdaugh and go from there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think we'll end the stream and we'll just pick up Murdaugh from this morning. That'll be entertaining. Free text alert for your subs. I don't know how to go about doing that, and sort of that. I don't know how to set that up. Services I've seen cost money to do that, and we don't really have money because we're barely surviving here, to be quite honest. I mean, you know, it's a very lower middle class life right now. So we just don't have the money. We don't have the money for services like that. But that's why one of the reasons why I post everything to Twitter, to Discord, you know, so people can get alerts that way. Because I don't know what else to do with that, you know, about that. Yeah. So if you can find a text service that's cheap enough, we'll see what we can do. All right. Yeah, last year our revenue was down versus the year before. And so we have to be very modest with our money. But that's okay. I mean, you know, I'm not in danger of starving anything. We just don't have a lot of money to throw around. You know, we're not making enough money we're not making money like we used to. I'm certainly not making money like I used to in my pan job. I just don't have the money to do a lot of things. Merch. We could do merch. In order to show it, we have to integrate it with YouTube. In order to do that, we have to go with something like, we have to go with a different service that would again cost money. The service we have now for merch is free. The ones that are integrated with YouTube cost money in terms of having the store. And again, it's just like we don't sell enough merch to make the revenue make sense. We barely sell any merch. I mean, maybe that's because we never show the merch, but you know, it is a problem. It's like, you know, it's like you got to spend money to make money, but you got to have money to spend it in the first place. You know what I mean? Yeah, we should always be kind to other creators. Nothing I said should be understood as a criticism of other creators. I mean, it's just raw numbers. I have nothing against other creators. I wish them all the success. I just wish I had more success, which is a perfectly reasonable thing to want. You know, I want to have more success so that I can bring in more revenue, do more things, travel to places maybe for you guys, or just live a slightly better lifestyle, or otherwise, you know, do things. So it's like, yeah, Nate the lawyer made about 8 times what I made last year. So, you know, yeah. So it's like, how can you not be like, yeah, maybe I should do that. Maybe that's the way to go. All right. But my life is good. My life is good, and I'm certainly a lot more successful than a lot of other creators, which is funny in a lot of ways. In the grand scheme of YouTube, I'm still one of the most successful creators in the platform. Something like only, I forget what the number is, and I don't remember if it's accurate these days, but something like only 0.3% of creators hit 100,000. So being at 100,000 subscribers means I'm already in the top 1% of all to YouTube subscribers, of all YouTube channels. So, you know, I still have a lot to be grateful for. And the fact that I can live any kind of living off of it is just nice. So I don't want to be ungrateful. I just wish I could do better, because I like to, you know, like to succeed in my business. Which I think is perfectly reasonable. All right. All right, so let's set up the stream. And I obviously know that a lot of people have their own financial struggles of their own. So I definitely don't want to be one of those creators who's like, don't you have $5? Don't you have $5 to contribute to this channel? Right? I don't want to be one of those guys. It's also one of the reasons I made it so cheap at 99 cents, to make it affordable for people, because I know as well as you do that when you're giving $5 over and over and over again, that can really add up. And so it's like, well, I don't want to run into that category. Like $5 for one person isn't so bad, but by the time you add in all the creators, it gets to be burdensome. So it's like, it's one of the reasons I made it 99 cents, to make it accessible to everyone. It's like, I hope that you have 99 cents a month to give, right? So I hope that try to make it as affordable as possible, so that, you know, people don't, who's Nate the lawyer? He's a friend of mine. He's a legal commentator. What else can you say about that? He's in my business. That's all you can really say about him. Okay. He has a successful channel. He's growing and he's making money. I've also got great audio. I think that's very kind of you. Thank you, Moosh, for the 99 cents. I do appreciate it. All right, so let's see. All right, I'm going to redirect you to myself. We're at least going to get started on this Alex Murdaugh thing. I'm probably going to take 5 or 10 minutes to stretch my legs. So, you know, you'll have to wait for me and stuff, but I will see you soon. Until then, my friends, I've been Uncivil Law. I hope all is well. Cheers, my friends, and goodbye.